I'm speaking with Danny Gregory, author of numerous books on what I'd like to say the art of drawing and the art of living, and that includes The Creative License, Art Before Breakfast, and his latest, How to Draw Without Talent. And Danny's the co-founder of an online learning community called Sketchbook Skool with Kosha Kona. And Danny, as I was just saying earlier, I boiled it down to three main questions, and we can just go from there. My question for you to start off is, I'd like for you to talk about the misconception that people often have about that they can't draw a straight line. That's like the classic thing, and you actually address that in your book. Well, actually, in the latest book. I've got all three books here in front of me. How to Draw Without Talent is the latest book, and you actually show people how to draw, literally how to draw a straight line on page 16 and 17. Can you talk about that misconception? Where did it come from, and how do you help alleviate people of it?
I mean, let's begin by saying drawing a straight line is pretty hard. It's not like an easy thing. It's not like a thing that great artists can naturally do. I think, they're confusing drawing with, engineering or architecture. If you need to draw a straight line, get a ruler and draw a straight line. But, line quality, though, is a factor in making art. That your line can communicate things, can express things. So if you have a line that lacks confidence because you don't feel comfortable drawing, your line is going to kind of telegraph that. But the fact is that we all have a line quality, and it's embodied in our signatures. Our signature is basically a drawing that we do, right? It's this drawing that we do over and over again, and it expresses who we are in some way, besides just actually having the letters of our name. So I start by talking about drawing a straight line because I want to diffuse it and say, look, it doesn't really matter if you can or not, but if you want to, here's how you draw a straight line. You can try a couple different ways. One is to draw it very slowly. If you draw a line slowly, you'll probably find that the line quality suffers because it'll be kind of wobbly and it won't be nearly as good as if you draw the line quickly and confidently. So if you draw a line swiftly, and it will be straight by and large, and it will be consistent, and it will feel like a line that says, I'm confident. And that's an important thing to think about because when you first start to draw, people tend to do what I call shaggy lines, where they'll go over the line, they'll sketch it.
Yeah.
I hate that word, sketchy. They'll go back and forth over it multiple times until it's sort of this vague approximation of a line.
Yeah, it's like a series of redos.
Yeah, I equate it with stuttering and stammering when you speak, or else saying kind of like, sort of kind of, it's the drawing equivalent of that. Just say it. Say what it is. Say it with a line, and just put it down and draw it. It might not be quite correct, but at least it will communicate what you're seeing and how you're feeling about it, and that's the most important part of making art.
Well, what's funny is as I'm listening to you, I'm drawing numerous straight lines, but maybe that's me. It takes a lot of practice, that's for sure, to do one straight line after another. But I think a lot of times people will ask process questions, and if they would just take a moment and try to do it on their own, that usually answers their question.
It's true. I mean, people, when they're worried and insecure about anything, particularly something new, they ask a lot of questions. They often assume that they have the wrong art materials.
Yeah.
There's a lot of discussion about what kind of pen are you using? What kind of sketchbook is that? And I always say, give me any pen, give me some paper out of that copier, and it'll be the same. That's not going to help you. But I think it's true whether you're, if you're learning to play tennis, you angst over what kind of a racket you should have.
Sure.
Everything that people do, they want to believe that if they can have the right stuff, then that will make it more likely to succeed. But if that gives you confidence, that's all that matters. If you feel, okay, I can definitely do it because I have the same kind of pen that he had, then great.
I think there's a lot to be said for that, but first things first. First, let's get you drawing, and then we can fine-tune things.
Exactly. So I've, from the beginning of when I've been writing about drawing, I've said to people, start with a pen. Not a pencil, but a pen. And in part because I think, again, that kind of forces you to commit. When you draw with a pencil and the other end of the pencil is an eraser, you feel like, well, sort of do something vaguely in the ballpark, and then I can always go back and tweak it and so forth. I think it's like Command Z on a computer. You can always go back and delete it and do it again. But if you commit and say, you know what, I'm just gonna do it, and a pen is gonna commit me to doing it, then that I often find increases your the rate at which your drawings get better. And also, as to what that pen is, I started with a Uniball, whatever that pen is called, that I got out of the supply closet at my office.
Sure.
And, it's like $2 for this Uniball, and I liked it because it just was smooth and kind of rolled. But, I don't know, over time, I've changed the pens that I use, and I've expressed it. But I think it's like, if you're learning to play the violin, you don't need a Stradivarius at first. It doesn't really matter. Learn to play the basics on whatever's at hand, and that'll also be the most fun and the most rewarding.
Well, I just saw a video with your Sketchbook Skool co-founder, Kosha Kona, where she's talking with an artist who typically uses a ballpoint pen.
Mm-hmm.
And a ballpoint pen, that's so familiar and so comforting, and I love using them too. And if it's not something that's commonly known, a lot of artists, that's their tool, that you can make art that's hanging in galleries with just a ballpoint pen.
Absolutely. I mean, David Hockney has done beautiful drawings with ballpoint pens. I mean, it's a great medium. I mean, it's fairly permanent. There's all kinds of reasons to like ballpoint pens, but the best reason is that they're available.
Yeah.
You don't have to postpone your drawing to go to the art supply store. You can just start doing it.
That's allowing for the siren.
Sorry, that's New York City in the background.
Allowing the siren to do its thing. Okay. Now let me jump to the second big question. Why, and it's kind of rhetorical, but why do people have a problem identifying with being an artist? And you address that in Art Before Breakfast. You talk about, well, let's all just start with being of art with a small a. Now, I have my own theories. I think, and I think this is a problem even for people who are trained, who have BFAs or MFAs. You hesitate to call yourself an artist until you feel like you have a track record or something, and then you also have the problem where maybe you're wondering if people have some notion about an artist is too elitist. And I think there's a certain disdain, especially in this country, for anything that seems too intellectual or too elitist. Would you like to talk about that?
Sure. I mean, I think it's a really loaded word. I think you're right in all the things that you just said about it. I think it's also kind of meaningless. I don't think it should matter really whether you're an artist or called an artist. You can still make art without worrying about that, and you can also not worry about the word art at all. You can make drawings. You can be a painter and make paintings. Just like you can be a potter and make pots, or you can be a musician and play music. So when it comes to the difference between a drawing and art, a lot of times people feel like that is a distinction that should be conferred upon you. That somebody else will call you an artist. Somebody else will call you a genius. And so therefore it is arrogant and presumptuous to kind of give yourself that title. But, again, I feel like all of these are just things that get in the way of the process. I think we think, particularly when we're starting out, we think of so many reasons to get in our own way when it comes to just making stuff. And the question is, when you were 5 or 6 years old, were making stuff every day, and you were having incredible amounts of fun doing it. And people might have called what you were making art, like, I'll put your art over here, or I'll hang your artwork up on the wall.
Yeah.
But you didn't care. You just, it was just a fun thing that you did. And I think that is the impulse that I want people to embrace again. And I think all the reasons that we have for not doing it, because I don't have the right equipment, because I don't have the right degree, because I don't have enough time, because I don't have any talent, all those things are the things that I'm battling, basically, because I don't really care if you make good art or not. I don't really care I don't even know what that means.
Yeah.
I'm just interested in you making stuff, creating things, having fun doing it, because it's really fun, and not, getting yourself all enmeshed and tangled up with all the nonsense that we put in our way when it comes to this stuff. The analogy I always make is I say, you can get a license to drive a car, and you can, I guess, be a driver, right? Mm-hmm. But you don't necessarily have to win a NASCAR race. And you can learn to cook a grilled cheese sandwich, but you don't have to be a 4-star chef opening a restaurant. So what I want to do is I want to make the grilled cheese sandwich of art, And I think a lot of people are so afraid of making any kind of art that they say, I can't draw a straight line, I have no talent. They won't even, literally I've had people say, I can't draw a stick figure. I think, really? You can't draw a stick figure? How hard is that? It's sort of 5 lines in a circle. You can do that. Yeah. So I think it's just like this area that we feel like we can't go into, because as soon as we do, we're getting tangled up with all this stuff. And these are things that were put into us when we were probably 11 or 12 years old. These kind of obstacles, they started to get wired into us, and and we started, and I think part of it is because we were trying to transition from being a little kid to being a teenager, and drawing was such a part of our lives when we were little, and drawing was also the way that we expressed ourselves before we learned to write letters, right? So we associate drawing increasingly with little kid behavior, baby behavior, and so we kind of welcome the idea that this is not appropriate behavior for a teenager. And then combined with that is that those of us who still continue to be interested in art, the world sets up all these obstacles because people don't want you to go to art school. They don't want you to suddenly say, I'm going to become an artist, because then you'll just be a freeloader on your parents for the rest of your life. And so there's all kinds of other reasons that the society has come up with to say, don't be an artist, be a lawyer. And so we just have all this stuff wrapped around it. And, I'm not telling people that they should quit their lucrative careers and, imperil their family's future. I'm just saying, sure. Just do it. Just grab a Post-it and do a drawing, for Christ's sake. It's not a big deal.
This is a topic we could just sit down and talk about forever. And I will say one little thing while you were talking. I thought, it was so common. It's so common to say, let's put your art up on the wall when you're in a classroom setting, and especially everyone can relate to that as a little kid in preschool and on up to the first, second, third, whatever grade. And it goes on through college. You put your art up on the wall, and in that context, no one feels any intimidation. Yes, I'm putting my art up on the wall. I'm an artist. I'm a fellow artist. I'm a fellow student. Whatever. So the word artist does have a purpose, but like you say, society, even ourselves, we can get in the way. And your books are all about getting rid of those barriers, whatever they are. But I'll move on to question 3.
Sure.
And this is a really good one. Share with us what it is that you love about sketchbooks. You rely on your trusty sketchbook. How does that inform what you do? And you talk about that in the creative license. I see over here on page 50. You talk about the benefits, the things that are great about sketchbooks or journals. It's familiar. The sketchbook ultimately is about you, and who's a better expert at you than you? So tell us a little bit about the sketchbook world and how that works for you.
Well, I love books. I've always loved books. And I love the physical object of a book. Mm-hmm. I love, so many things about books. And ever since I was little, I wanted to make books. I wanted to be an author, but I also loved just making little books, 8-page books and stapling through the center. I just love books. There's one thing that you said in your question that I think is something I would like to address, which is you said, how does it inform what you do? I think that was the term you used. And I think that there's an assumption, particularly in the art world, that sketchbooks are meant to inform something else, that they are a step to your real work. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing that I don't embrace in my own work, I guess. To me, the sketchbook is the work. I don't make paintings. I don't do a sketch. It's not a preparatory medium for me. It is the end. Yeah. So I like to work in books. I like to and I also like to not only draw, but I like to write because I'm a writer. And so I do drawings, and then I do writing next to them. And I spent 30 years as a creative director in advertising. So I think a lot about design. I think about writing. I think about layout. I think about headlines. And so my sketchbooks are kind of designed in the way that a magazine page would be designed, with the image and the words interacting and coming together to tell you something else. And that has been, and the things that it's telling you telling me are the stories of my life. Every page is basically a chronicle of whatever's going on with me at that time. So my sketchbooks are also my diaries and my journals. And I think that that's not true for the majority of people who do sketchbooks. It is for a certain group of us that we call ourselves, I don't know, for lack of a better term, like illustrated journal keepers. And I think about going back to Da Vinci, of course. His notebooks are beautiful combinations of writing and drawing. But also, if you think about explorers' notebooks, if you think about people who kind of recorded their journeys or their discoveries in a sketchbook with maps and annotations and diagrams and all that stuff. I just love that. I love the look of it. I love the idea of it. Yeah. And this book that you're making is a record of what's happening to you. I think that that's a really fantastic thing. I've always loved it. Even before I started drawing, I didn't start drawing until I was in my late 30s. Mm-hmm. But I always loved this stuff, of this kind of book that showed the life of the person who was filling it. And it's just beautiful to me, and there's just an infinite number of ways in which you can do it, and that's what a sketchbook is to me.
Yeah, well, I somehow naturally fall into using elitist terminology. I'm joking, I'm being facetious, but now the book is How to Draw Without Talent, and you are tying this in with your amazing undertaking here. I'm actually taking one of your classes right now, the mixed media journaling class, Sketchbook Skool. Tell us about Sketchbook Skool. I'd like to know, how did this whole darn thing start with you and Kosha Kona?
Well, as I said, I spent all these years in advertising, and I learned a lot about making commercials. I made a lot of commercials for Super Bowl on down. And so I learned a lot about filmmaking. And simultaneously, I was also learning about drawing. And I was writing books about drawing. I was also blogging. I've been blogging for about 15 years or longer, just writing about my creative process and discovery. And people had asked me to teach, and I never really felt that comfortable with it because I had never been taught. I'd never gone to art school. I'd never really taken any classes. I just kind of stumbled my way through things, and the idea that I was somehow an authority of some kind, I've never been an authority on anything except what I've done. So I never felt terribly comfortable with all that. So, but then I decided that I was done with advertising. I didn't want to work in that business anymore, and I wasn't sure what I was going to do next. So I was working on a bunch of different projects, and I did go and teach at workshops, and I was up in Massachusetts at a beautiful place teaching this workshop. But I worked really hard to put this workshop together, and there were maybe 40 or 50 people in the workshop. We spent 3 days together drawing. And at the end of it, I lost my voice. And I thought, man, this is a lot of work. I was used to doing TV commercials that literally tens of millions of people would see, and here I was just busting my hump to teach 30 or 40 people some rudimentary stuff. And I thought, okay, this is not really the ideal scenario. So, but I've been on the internet, and I obviously knew a lot about it, and I thought, okay, people are teaching courses online, maybe that's what I should do. And I met Kosher because she had been teaching a few courses online. She was an illustrator. She used to be a photographer, so she knew a lot about filmmaking as well. And we just started to talk about, let's put together something that, is, we're not going to heavily commit to it. I'm not going to sit down and teach a 5-week course on anything, but I have a lot of friends who are also interested in the same kinds of things I'm in. So let's put together a course where I'll teach a week, and then Kosher would teach a week, and then we brought in a bunch of other friends, and they each taught a week. We put together a 6-week class, and we just kind of went out on social media and said, hey, we're thinking about this thing. Would you be interested? And it sold out really quickly, and we had 2,000 people took it the first time, and we thought, wow, okay, so this is a lot easier than 50 people. I didn't lose my voice doing it, and so we offered it again, and again it sold out, and then we went and found a bunch of other artists, and we did it again, and so now we've made 26 courses in this way of just combining lots of different artists' perspectives and filming it and sharing it, and we've had about 50,000 people have taken our classes now over the last 5 or 6 years. And, this continues to grow, and we also have this really great community that I'm sure you're now a part of as well, the Schoolyard, which is basically our kind of social network where people who are taking classes can hang out with each other, and they can talk about what they're doing in the class, but they can also talk about a lot more, just like you would on Facebook or Instagram or so forth. You share your work, you talk about stuff, you share ideas, you share, and it may not just be limited to art. People are also talking about their lives, and they're also getting together IRL, so they'll meet up in whatever town they're in, and they can meet other people from there, and they all meet in real life. So it's really been an amazing thing that was sort of this small side project, and has now become, we've had, I think, almost 60 teachers, 60 artists around the world have participated in this, and it just continues to grow, and we're doing it in lots of different forms. Next year we're going to be kind of reinventing it in a lot of radically new ways. But it's just really nice because you can take a class and you can work on it live when a bunch of other people are doing it, but you can also work at your own pace, and you have lifetime access to it, so you can come back to it, look at it again, and it's really designed to be for anybody. It's not, you don't need any particular skill level, but if you are skilled, great, and you can share those skills with other people.
Yeah, you get out of it what you bring to it, and it's just like any other class. You need to do the homework, and you'll enjoy doing the homework. So it really is like any other class situation. You need to. Well, need seems too strong a word. I don't know, but I think you get lost in the class. You enjoy it. It's something that you want to do. So you go in there with something that you want to do, and you find reasons to keep up with it. Or is that making sense?
Yeah. No, I'm glad that you're enjoying it. I mean, we try and make them as beautiful as possible. That's a really important thing to us as well. So we often go to the artist studios and we film there. We bring like a really amazing film crew. We have editors. We have music, and it's just designed to be like watching a TV show or a documentary. It's not like a lot of art classes that I've seen that it's sort of like a webcam or something. We really want to make it feel like like you're there, but it's beautiful.
Yeah.
And so you can watch it like as entertainment, but of course it's all the more useful if you try it out and do stuff. And when you make something, if you feel like it, you can share it with the other people who were there. And then, as we just had literally an hour ago, every week we'll do a webinar with the teacher, and you can ask questions. And today we had about 300 people showed up to ask questions who were taking the course. And the teacher spent an hour demonstrating stuff, explaining stuff, answering questions. It's really amazing.
That is very, very true. I love how it's developed so organically. It began at a certain pace, and it's just grown in I'd say a beautiful way. The segments are so vivid, and I do feel like I'm right there with the instructor. And you miss something, you can come back to it later, and I love coming back to it because they're chock full of information, each little segment. So it's a delight. It really is.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad that you enjoy it, because it is, as you say, you can go back to it. Then you can also come back to it in 6 months or in a year.
Oh yeah.
And where you won't even remember a lot of things, and you'll have also evolved as an artist, and then you'll see all kinds of new things when you watch it again. So it's really interesting, and also there are all these people who took it with you, and you'll remain connected to them. So people will come back. I've had people say, because I did a class on drawing on the iPad earlier this year that I taught, and almost immediately somebody said, I plan to take this course again immediately after it's over. Will anybody join me and do it with me again?
Uh-huh.
So that is, of course, very rewarding, but it's just kind of funny how people are able to take it and make their own version of it as they go through it.
Well, I think that's a perfect place to bring this to a close. How to draw without talent. Is there anything else you'd like to add, Danny?
Well, if you don't have any talent, you can still draw. If you have talent, good for you. So don't let it stop you. And take a course with me if you'd like. Buy a book from me if you'd like. But much more importantly, just draw whatever's in front of you. Draw your shoe, draw your hand, draw your dog. Just do one drawing, and then tomorrow do another drawing, and see where that leads you. I promise you, it's the most fun thing, and it will make you happy. It will make you relaxed, and it can also help you to meet other people. It's not designed to change your life in any kind of negative way or disrupt it. You don't have to become a famous artist. You can just make a grilled cheese sandwich.
Exactly. Okay. Well, thanks so much, Danny.
You bet.
Okay.